right. So, ladies and gentlemen, so hello there from Jason. My name is Jason. I'm the Hellenic Goof, and today in my lovely, humble Hellenic podcast, we have a very special guest, I might add. It was a suggestion from another special guest of mine, Phoenix Aurelius. And I asked him, do you know anybody that I could really interview that's an interesting guy? And immediately he jumped to the conclusion that I should interview you, Jim. So welcome, Jim.
Well, thank you, Jason. And I'm honored because I love Phoenix, and his work is just absolutely spectacular. And that's what our job is. My job is not to know everything. My job is to find the people who do and put the puzzle together, right? And I'll frame this talk with this one quote from Victor Hugo. There's one thing stronger than all of the armies of the world, and that is an idea whose time has come. And what we're going to share today is exactly that idea.
We started off poetically. I can only imagine how that will go forward. I like that. I like when people quote wise men from the past and women from the past, because truth, Jim, I find that slowly. Now I am 31, and for the past 3-5 years I open up to the truth slowly but surely, because I managed my ego. To be honest, I managed my youthful ego. And when you manage that BS and you put it in its position, you finally come to the conclusion that there are many people out there that you should listen to, or at least feel. I said feel because I heard an interview of yours talking about we should feel things. So let's start by that. I know that we have many things to talk about.
Yes, so. I love it, because feeling is it. Though feeling is the gateway to transformation, right? It's not thinking. In fact, Tesla said something, and I think, like most of history, the powers that be have manipulated this quote, because I don't think he said this. If you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. The word in place of think should be feel. It should be experience, right? Because thinking is not, like Einstein said, imagination is more important than knowledge. For knowledge tells us what is, and imagination tells us what will be. Well, knowledge is just a bunch of thinking, right? We have to feel and imagine a future that serves us, and then we can create that future.
And on that point, which was beautifully again quoted, and you have a way to, this is a parenthesis of mine, but you have an energetic way to explain things with a smile. And I don't know if people say this to you, but this is a talent that we all need. So I hope that you never lose it, Jim. So thank you for that. So having said that, about feeling, one thing you can even imagine in high school here in Greece, we learn a lot about algebra. So we learn a lot about specific equations. We learn a lot about the mathematical view, but from the data point. So we regard the data, the analytical mind. We praise the analytical side of the mathematics. But what we never do, or we never did, I don't know how are things now. I don't think they are better than my time. But what we do here is we do not regard geometry. And I don't know what you know about geometry, Jim, but geometry seems to be important in this world, isn't it?
Oh my gosh, I was
Tell us about geometry. What's
yes.
your opinion?
So I was just watching the latest Thrive show. I'm not sure if you've seen Thrive, this one with Foster Gamble and his crew. Now, I'm very skeptical about anybody in the system that is basically sharing their message on a platform that is controlled. Right, so I'm just want to put that out there. I didn't vote for any president in this last election because I don't believe that that's the solution forward. I don't believe that governmente, which literally means control of the mind, right? I don't think that's the solution to any of it. I don't think authority to not be the authors of our own stories, of our own lives, that's not the solution, right? So with that said, what he said in this documentary was freaking fantastic. And it's all really, his thing is about geometry and finding these and incorporating these sacred geometries into the physics that we already know and that are out there, but now adding new layers of possibilities. You know, in fact, this idea of free energy, the whole thing has been proven for so freaking long. It's just outrageous. If anybody wants to know about free energy, look at the YouTube show Bill Mollison, the Trump, Trompe. It'll blow your mind. They were using and driving around cars on compressed air, basically free energy, back like 70 years ago in Melbourne, Australia, right? And of course, what happened to that energy? Just like thousands of other patents. Well, the people who control the system took it out because they don't want the competition, because that competition will destroy them. So of course they're going to try everything. They're the creators of war, and wars are over this type of thing.
You know, that's a very interesting point, and let's go to the energy stuff. So here in Hellas, we have an inventor from Crete. Do you know where the island of Crete?
I just know that there's an olive tree that's been producing olives for over 2,000 years on that island. But go ahead.
Jesus, I didn't know that. Really?
Isn't that cool?
That's amazing. So we have you knowing thing about Crete that I don't know, but that's the world we're living in. So the information flow is so amazing. Anyways, there's an inventor we have called Michalis Kalogerakis, and I'm going to send you a few stuff if you want to. And he's basically living more or less autonomously. He creates fuel from raki. Raki is a Cretan alcoholic beverage, and he creates fuel from that. And he drives around using raki, and he creates fuel from hydrogen. So he's very famous in Greece in the, let's call it the truther communities in Greece. Very famous in that, but. Of course, he doesn't get any real coverage from the media,
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, Jim, that's my question to you. Let's assume that we are the elite, right? Don't you want to create better fuel so that you can have your slaves working on something better than just fuel? That's my question.
Okay, so that would be that's the way our minds work, Jason, is we want what's best for humanity, and they don't. And this is one of the toughest things that I didn't believe. It was 10 years of me struggling with this concept. It's called cognitive dissonance, two competing belief systems in my brain at the same time. One is this belief system that why would these people do these things to destroy? There's no way they're doing this on purpose. It's just ignorance, which prolonged ignorance is evil as well, because it's deathful, it's unsustainable, and it will lead to the death of everything unless we rise above it, right? Which is what we talk about here. So they literally want the depopulation of society. They want any system that can help them control every society in every way. They will use that system to control us. Goethe said, none are more hopelessly enslaved than those who falsely believe they are free. And when I first heard that I was a slave, I was like, oh, fuck off. I'm not a slave. I can do anything I want. Well, that year I paid $180,000 in taxes. And what did the taxes go for? To pay off debt on an entity that's not federal, that we cannot audit, which is just insane by itself. Anybody who tries to talk around that being logical is just programmed stormtroopers. And then wars. These wars are absolutely ridiculous, and they're funded by the same families that control the industries of all of our society, right? So that's why this idea whose time has come implies, first of all, the armies of the world are what we need to be aware of and mindful of. And then how to circumvent those is an idea that has been in all of our minds forever. All right. In fact, I don't know anybody who's not heard of the Garden of Eden. And I'm not talking about a religious place. I'm talking about a place of abundance, because that's the next logical step for humanity. And that's what we're doing at an exponential rate.
All right. So I'm happy to hear that you have that view and that opinion. And since you referenced the Garden of Eden, so let's talk a little bit about what you are actually professionally doing the past few months or years. So what do you do?
I'll start with what happened to me. The why is so important in our world. Like, why do stuff? So it was 14 years ago. I had sold a mortgage company that did about $1.3 billion in total revenue. And I bought a boat. I lived on the ocean for a year. And my goal was to bring emotional intelligence to every school in North America. And I had started a foundation to do so. And I started interacting with the schools, and the higher up in the school system that we went, the more crazy these people were, the more they actually got offended that I was criticizing their school system. And I'm like, what's going on? I'm just trying to bring ideas that have been proven. These aren't hypothetical ideas. These are ideas that have been proven the world over. Why don't we teach this stuff? Then I moved to Costa Rica. I fell in love with the jungle there and my wife there. And then three things happened to me in the same 6-month period. I had my second daughter. I had learned about permaculture, which is an agricultural design science that studies what works and puts it all together in one science called permaculture. And then I also red pilled. I learned what was actually happening in the world. So those three things together freaked me out because I didn't see a solution. And I was so distraught because I was thinking, what's the world of my grandkids going to be like? In fact, will I even be able to have grandkids the way this is going? And I'm an optimist by nature. I think we all are at some degree. And in fact, it's the degree to which we've been programmed into fear and guilt and shame and rage and all these things. That's the degree to which we get to release the programming and live life again. Right? So 2 years I basically spent studying the problem from 8 to 12 hours every single day. I was infatuated with it. And then I read Bill Mollison's quote. He said, though the problems of our world are increasingly complex, the solutions remain embarrassingly simple. And I started to sob because I knew that I had a path forward. And I started going for this path. And then I asked questions. I start with reverse engineering with the end picture in mind. The end picture is a community of radical abundance and freedom. So since then, my joyful obsession has led me to now. We design and install food forests. Our target market is the suburban lawn. Here in the United States, there are 40 to 50 million acres of lawn. If we just took 30% of the edges of those lawns and we turn them into regenerative agriculture, that's actually less maintenance than a lawn. And that's the part that I want to get that. I want to say that one more time. What I'm talking about is less maintenance than a lawn. It will bring your family's likelihood of getting cancer and diabetes and heart disease down radically. It will increase the abundance and the butterflies and the birds and the bees and the nature. And it will provide enough food for you to absolutely thrive. And that's all we have to do is use our resources wisely.
You said a few things that were very critical. So you said that you went to Costa Rica, and before that, I guess, I assume from your saying that you were a little bit depressed of the world and the world state, and you had your first daughter, I guess, and you were thinking of, I mean, where is my daughter going to live? What world is this? And then you went there, you find a few truths, you felt the truth better, and then you found the solutions to be simpler than you thought they would be. And this is a very fine point, Tim, I think. And I'm not as experienced as you, not even close. But from my own little experience I have here, I see that sometimes the biggest problems require the smallest, the simplest solutions. And sometimes, yes, the simplest solution, which, for example, you just said it, you know, we have so much space in the city. Every city has, you probably have some space, even if you live in an apartment in Athens or where you live, Jim. I mean, you probably have a few square meters or square feet of space. Instead of putting nothing there, nothingness, or put some, grass, and you have to, always maintain it, and probably hardest. Why not make what you said exactly? And I was always thinking of that, and that's my second point right now. You did it mathematically. So, in a sense, you simplified with mathematics. So, you made me feel, explaining you how I felt when I heard that you said all about the lawns and the square meters. I felt relief. I felt like, whoa, there's a solution.
Yeah.
There is a way out.
Yes.
There's actually a way out, and it takes less than 6 months.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
Probably. I'm right. I don't know. What do you know?
Yeah, and the act of engaging in the solution is actually the other healing element, right? Because there's the physical and the metaphysical, right? The metaphysical, the most wicked and insidious and strong tool of enslavement is fear. So when they can confuse and frustrate and create fear in a society where everybody's not knowing which way to look, which way to go, what to do, when you take your attention from that tool of enslavement, which causes disease and death, prolonged fear is literally the most dangerous thing, because that is a death sentence. Right? Because it's a contraction of the spirit, and everything starts slowing down to protect, right? When we let go of that, and I'll share exactly how to let go of that. It happened to me, and it's epic. Was the magic that's happened since I let go of fear, which is just a year ago. And in fact, a little backstory. I went from when I was 30, I wrote my goals and I wanted to have $3 million in 3 years. I ended up over the next 6 or 7 years, accumulating about $20 million in net worth. Then, when I learned the problem, I started focusing a little bit out of fear. My efforts, my striving and pushing and pursuing, I had fear based in that. Right, a year ago, and I went down to negative 80,000, from 20 million to negative 80,000. Which is all on my credit cards. I had good credit, still do, but it took me till the end of my rope. And then I said, what the hell's going on? Change the question. What the heaven is going on? And then I started really diving into and trusting and having faith in the meditative process, the process of allowing my mind to relax and being guided by the messages that came through. And when I did that, the last year has been pure magic. There's no amount of logic that could point to any of this being possible on a logical level. There's something going on that's bigger than logic.
Well, wow. I have many things to ask you, of course, since I'm very curious about your lives. All right, so let's start from the point where you got rich, but probably not wealthy. So you said that you got rich, 20 or 30 million in net worth, but you had fear during that time. So I want to ask you, was fear the main driver of you getting rich in a materialistic way, but not in spiritual way? So what's your opinion on that?
I think that's a fantastic question. So while I was pursuing my goals of earning money, that was the time I went from broke, right? I was broke, and the next thing I needed was, or wanted, desired, was money. And so I started a mortgage company, and that process, it was pure joy. Like it was for the most part, it was wrapped in this joy of manifesting my desire. So then when I did learn about the deep state and the crazy shit going on, that's when fear entered my life. And it was the fear for my daughter's lives and my future grandkids. That was the thing that I couldn't get over until I did. And then once I finally did, once I realized that we are spirit playing Leela, the divine game, that this is an experience, that source is, we are just a part of that, experiencing this divine situation here. And I let go of all the fear. And I'll tell you, I got many miracles type of stories, but one that is just off the charts. So when I was growing up, I didn't watch TV all that much, but I had my favorite TV shows. In my 20s, my favorite TV show was The Crocodile Hunter with Steve Irwin. And after launching on the High Wire with Dale Bigtree, he did a show called Creating Abundance in Your Backyard, 33-minute segment, which was focused on my life. After that, the Crocodile Hunter producer called me up and said, Jim, we'd like to do a show featuring you as the Steve Irwin of permaculture and bringing your mission to the world, your vision to the world. Now, that alone is off the charts because it just happened to be my favorite freaking show for 10 years out of the millions of producers out there or whatever, however. Then 2 days later, I get a call from my favorite actor 10 years later. In my mid-30s, my favorite show was Entourage, and my favorite actor was Adrian or Vincent Chase. I get a call from Adrian saying, Jim, I'd like to do a show. Within 6 months of launching, we had a pilot of a TV series called The Land of Plenty done. It's done, ready to go. A major TV network. Now, we only launched 9 months ago. A major TV network has already made us a formal offer on the TV show, which will inspire millions of people around the world to grow food. So, and that's literally just one of a list of things that are unexplainable, but I know why they're happening.
Amazing. I can guess why they may happen. And I think enthusiasm is a word that's very underrated. And you have plenty of it, of course, as anybody can witness. I can tell you a short story of myself so that
Please.
I can explain to the people, and probably you can also see how enthusiasm works for other people too. So when I was younger, I didn't used to speak a lot. So I didn't used to talk to people. I was quite smart, so my IQ is pretty high. I was always a reader, so I was reading since I was like 3 years old, literally. I was reading my books, not my mother. I was the small child reading his own books alone.
Wow. Love it.
Weird kid, to be honest, but I was doing that. So everything regarding the intellectual realm came very easy to me. And then I had to face my fears regarding speaking, public speaking, and meeting girls when I was in high school, right? So, and I was struggling with it. First of all, I tried exercise, tried to lose weight. I did. The girls were a little bit impressed, but I couldn't do something with them. So they were attracted to me. I was doing my cool haircuts. I was literally doing my best, my very best, to look great, really, to look really fashionable. And yet the result never came. I was like almost there, but it never came because I couldn't speak, I couldn't feel, I couldn't let myself feel.
Yeah.
And then came the revelation when I was 19, Jim. I remember I was the first year in uni, engineering school, so everybody was a geek there, so I was feeling okay there. But I had still that problem. I had no girlfriend, really, 19 years old, so it was a little bit late. So I'm like, I have to solve this problem. And, at some point I say, fuck it. I don't want to solve it. So fuck, whatever happens, happens. And I went there and I let myself go in one night. It took one night. I drank a little bit of alcohol, but not much. But I let myself go. I was thinking, I was in a club, Jim, and I was listening to the beat. And I was feeling the beat. I stopped overthinking. And the funny thing is I was literally not thinking, and I was feeling the beat. Everything froze. People around me were talking to me. I wasn't there. I was in another universe or the same universe. And I was feeling the beat. I was dancing with the beat, my heart with the beat. And there was a beat playing, beautiful beat probably, I don't remember. And I started dancing. I started moving,
I love it.
Dancing and moving and doing stuff. And started smiling. And I started, feeling great. I started feeling on my own. Nobody cared about me. And I liked that. And I cared about everyone around, though, because I felt great and I wanted to share the feeling with them. Because it was a weird experience. From that point on, Jim, I really opened up. And the girlfriend thing, it wasn't a thing anymore.
That's so amazing. So you remember the moment where there's some kind of release happening. Now, I want to say thank God for the apocalypse, because the apocalypse means the great unveiling, lifting the veil. We are becoming
Greek word.
Is it?
Apocalypse.
Can you break it down?
Yeah, apo means from, remove. So in a way, you remove is from apo, and calypse, apocalypse. Calypse means basically you cover the coverage. So you remove the coverage.
Thank you. I just asked somebody yesterday, which is just insane. Yesterday, I asked somebody who knows words to break down the root of that for me and send it to me. And then here you are, the day after I asked that, What the
God
heck is
works
going
in weird ways.
It's epic, man. Okay, I'm going to share one. So 2 weeks ago, I was on a TV show podcast called The Badass Uncle Sam, right? This guy is an amazing guy. And I get invited on a show regularly, and I'm on the show and I'm fishing. I'm in my boat. I've got my iPhone between my knees, which I know is a tool of enslavement. I'm trying to, I'm working towards that, but it's also a tool of freedom if you use it right. But anyway, I'm on the podcast and I catch this little bass and I say, I want to catch you a record. And then we started talking about manifestation and the law of attraction. And then on film, I've been fishing. I'm 52 years old. I've been fishing my whole life. I catch the biggest bass, my record, on film right while we're talking about it, and we're talking about the law of attraction.
Isn't that weird?
This is beyond weird. So what's happening in the apocalypse is it's people are starting to feel it. It's palpable. Like if you take a breath and you look at your hands and you can feel the vibration. I can hear it. I can sense things that I couldn't sense, that I didn't sense before I took the breath and really went internal, right? So that's the first thing, is to go internal, and you'll feel the vibration raising. You'll feel the vibration and go, oh my gosh. And then all of a sudden these ideas, these transformations come. And that's what's happening. In fact, this idea of ascension. There's a lot of people send me videos on the Great Ascension or in this, and I didn't understand what that meant until last weekend. I spoke at the Greater Reset, and I was invited to this tea party afterwards. Now, I've never been to a tea party like this. It was a meditation session. There was 8 people at the table, and we were meditating and breathing and then talking very consciously. And during that session, I understood or overstood what ascension means. It's simply a vibrational raising of our society. And with that comes all of the wonderful things that are coming.
Agree.
Yeah.
And it reminds me of, I have a friend here, Jim, a yogi. What he told me is that he frequently goes to hospitals. I don't know if that has anything to do with what you said about Ascension, but he goes with his own students and they form a circle around sick people, and they pray and they start, emitting beautiful positive energies towards them, and pray for them to heal fast, and doing, arms, homes, and all these, vibratory medicines, if you can call them that way. And that's what I, felt when you said Ascension and, all that thing about humanity. But how can we solve this if we go globally? So what's your opinion? Should we focus on our local economies? Because what I see, Jim, and you are much more experienced than I am, of course, but what I see, Jim, is that people are obsessed nowadays, the past 2 decades, to be honest, about global. So we are so obsessed to be global. Our company should be everywhere and everywhere. Sometimes that might be good. For example, we talk now and we are from different countries, completely different places. So what's your opinion about local and global? So how can we balance those things and our focus to them?
I love that. That is a really important and wise question. Everybody's got a role to play. It's like a puzzle. And when every piece of the puzzle is put in, then the idea whose time has come, there it is, right? And then the vast majority of people in the world are aware of it. So what I've done strategically is I started with the vision of a free and abundant world. In neurolinguistics, it's called fourth position, where you're kind of overlooking the whole thing and you're thinking global. And then the question is, how do we think global and act local? And how do we very meticulously and strategically create the seed the abundance all over the world in a way that's duplicatable? And that's permaculture. So again, it's not a hypothetical, it's a proven, demonstratable fact all over the world that we can create this kind of radical abundance. In fact, the forest down the street from your house, who takes care of that forest? And you say, what are you talking about? Nobody takes care of the forest. That's what I'm talking about. When we put in food forests all over the world. They are expansive and regenerative by their very nature. I'll give you an example. I've got a friend in northern Minnesota where it's really, really freaking cold. It's like the tip of Lake Superior. And he's got 300 different species of edible and medicinal plants growing on his permaculture designed food forest on his few acres of his property. And around that, so the fourth and fifth year, he said he estimates about 10,000 plants have been planted in the forest around his food forest on year 4, and he said over 100,000 have been planted on year 5, which means that you take that food forest over time and it's expanding. It would cover the globe. It would change as it hits different zones and it would adapt to different zones. But now what we're doing is seeding these food forests all over the world. We just got another one in Chiang Rai, Thailand. We're doing them in Africa. We're doing them all over the world. And when I say we, I'm talking about the general permaculture and sustainable regenerative agriculture networks. It's going everywhere and everyone is expansive. So it's like the antivirus. It's like the anti-cancer. It spreads like a virus or like cancer, but what is spreading is abundance.
All right. That's a positive message. And I applaud it, of course. Now, that's fine, Jim. But I have, Jim, 20 acres and I have no water. So my water situation is really dire. My acres are not stable, so they're not like leveled. They are a little bit, So what do I do? And by the way, the soil is overworked for the past 30 years. So what do I do, Jim? Is that even possible for me to go permaculture?
Permaculture is the answer to it, and it's been proven everywhere. In fact, start by looking at a video online called Greening the Deserts of Jordan with Jeff Lawton, where in some places it might only rain every 2 or 3 years. So the most important thing is to create the foundation so that when it does rain, you design in swales, which are simply ditches on contour. When the rain hits, it might be a monsoon rain, it might be a few inches, but as it's going across the landscape, if you don't slow it down and let it sink in, then it'll actually destroy the topsoil. It'll take the nutrients with it. So you start by at the highest point of your property. That's logical. And this is part of the permaculture design process. You create these swales. Then when it rains, the water will go into the ground. And then you plant on the side of the hill that's downhill. So then that becomes a gravity feeding watering system. Right? And you then use plants that are hardy and then that actually build soil, nitrogen fixing plants that as they're growing, they're actually adding nutrients to the soil. And then this is the part a lot of people miss as well. If you have any fruit trees anywhere, almost all the time, you're going to want mulch around the fruit trees, a significant amount of mulch. You want to like a donut. You don't want it necessarily up against the base of the tree. That could create mold and it can create some issues, but have a little bit of a donut and then as big of an area of mulch as you can get. Now, here in Florida, we've got a very alkaline soil. So we just bought literally a 40-foot truckload of pine straw, pine needles, and that creates acidity in the soil. So to know where your soil's at and how to amend it, and then using natural processes, as those pine needles break down, they create acidity and they create the layers where the microbiome grows. And that's where the soil is and where the mulch is. That's where the magic happens.
All right. So it's all about balance, about knowing your soil and about solutions. And always, there's always a solution from what I'm getting from you. Just have patience and some plan,
Yeah.
Okay. By the way, that was a literal question. I do have 20 acres and I do have that kind of situation. So
awesome.
That wasn't hypothetical.
Well, let's get it designed. Like the design is the first step. It's the most important step is take the knowledge that has been accumulated in this permaculture network and have that designed into your landscape. And that is gold.
All right. I'll dive into your stuff. over the next few weeks to be sure about it. So last question, Jim, for today, since we're approaching the end. So last question for today. What's your opinion about monoculture? So why is when I say monoculture, I don't know if I say this correctly. The thing that we are doing as civilizations nowadays. Why is that so prevalent everywhere in society? Why do we rely on that system, and why shouldn't we should not we rely on that system, in your opinion?
Yeah, to understand the problem is very important, because then we can turn our energy away from that towards something wonderful. The problem, and Henry Kissinger said back 50 some years ago, he said, if you want to control nations, control oil. If you want to control people, control food. The strategy of that psychopath, of that slave master, is what has led to just a couple corporations controlling the global food supply. And how do they do so? Well, Bill Mollison said the agriculture taught in our colleges and universities around the world for the last 50, 60 years has been the most destructive element in our society. Monocultures are absolutely unnatural in their form, where they use poisons to grow food. I mean, Jane Goodall said, we're going to look back on this dark era of agriculture and shake our heads and wonder, how could we have ever thought it was a good idea to grow our food with poisons? And the answer to that is because this is part of the strategy of enslavement, which has been duplicated in war and armies all throughout the world. Control the food supply. And so then the solution is take the control back, and it's our backyards, it's our 20 acres, it's our 1/10 of an acre. One more quick thought. Dr. Ian Scott, one of my partners, he's got a 1/10 of an acre backyard. He's got over 100 different perennial plants and over 70 different species of plant growing on his 1/10 of an acre. So you don't need a lot of space. We've designed them on 400 square feet, like 40 square meters. We can design guilds that produce an absolute abundance.
Wow. Now that's a hopeful message. So even if, let's say, assume that half of what you said was true, this is a very hopeful message, to be honest, Jim. I didn't expect that, to be honest. So that gives me hope, because I was complaining about my 20 acres of no water. So I'm probably going to get down there and do some work. So thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
So having said that, man, where can people really find your stuff and what you're doing right now?
Yeah, so there's a couple things that are very high level and just epic. We got a call from a funding agent, a bank that needs to donate some money. They heard about our message, and looks like we're going to be getting at least about $50 million to put food forests in schools throughout North America. Now, if that's the only thing we did, it would radically change the world in a very short time. It's one of many things that we're doing, but imagine a school food forest that serves as a food production system, a habitat system, an educational system. You can teach biology and economics and everything, food, cook, everything right from that system as an educational tool. It also becomes a nursery. And think about the value of food relative to fiat. Right? The fiat is going down like this and food is going up like this. So to invest in your own food production systems in your yard is the best investment we can imagine by far. It's the investment that makes a difference between health and scarcity. So that's the one thing. And the other thing is we teach the regenerative capitalism, as opposed to the violence and force of socialism and communism. We teach the voluntary exchange of value. So we've created an affiliate network that anybody who wants to sign up can be an affiliate. And this is what I would suggest for yourself, Jason, is put a link to our stuff on there. So if somebody clicks on it and purchases a product, then you get compensated because you helped create the value.
I'm into any idea regenerating the world, giving power back to the people, helping the people heal the environment and ourselves. Count me in. So awesome. after the recording, let me know of the details and we can set that up. So, people, you're listening to Jim, and this is going to be translated because I find this an excellent message and very important. So, to my Hellene friends, let me know of your opinion about Jim. and about his ideas and about everything. If we can support him further, if we have anybody in Greece with permaculture or whatever, we can connect you with Jim. If you like the video, of course, if you like our interview, please press the like button. That shows a bit of appreciation in these weird times where Google, of course, tries to suppress any good idea that wants to regenerate the world. So we will appreciate your gesture. Having said that, Jim, please stay for a minute after the recording. And for anybody else, have a nice day and see you in the next Hellenic podcast. Ciao, ciao. Ta λέμε.